you and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
Yes.
a boundary might have been crossed
Yes.
that you, right?
That's
So
correct.
just an example
That's a
of,
good example.
it is a great example. I appreciate that for
Yes.
giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen difference as negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for, how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Hey.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in. This is Working It Out Across Generations. I'm one of your hosts, Justin.
And I am your other host, Dr. Lynne.
And here we talk all things conflict, big and small, and how they play a role in how we function as a society. We have a conflict resolution background in our professional lives. So we also try to offer some tips for reconciliation. And I think we have a really, really good topic today. Still in the holiday time. So I think that's exactly why, it's very timely what we're going to be talking about today. However, we're going to be getting into, is it okay to cut ties with family? And I'll let Dr. Lynne take us into this conversation.
That's a deep one. I think it's really important during this time. I think it comes up for a lot of people just through the course of their lives. But when you talk about times where people are going to expect to get together, holidays or whatever, right? Then it comes up. They really want to think about and talk about the fact that they have different ideas, philosophies in their head that, hey, we've been indoctrinated by the folks who raised us, by society as well. Certainly, if you celebrate any of the holidays, a big theme is family, getting together with family, right? And being happy about that. But what about people who really aren't happy about that? And there's more people than you think, more people than I thought. I can tell you. So I think this is an excellent topic. So for me, here's the deal. This came up for me in all seriousness to really start to think about my own beliefs around this, because believe me, they are entrenched. What I believe about this is true. And there was nothing different, right? Until 4 years ago, someone in my Facebook family who commented a lot on my post, I posted something about family and always being there for family. And she said, why? Why is that true? It doesn't have to be true. She's like, I'm not even talking about if family abused you. I'm talking about the fact that just seems to be a philosophy that people just accept without thinking about it. And why is that true? Why does family get a pass? And I was like blown away. I was like, whoa, making me think about this when for me there was no question, because that's how I was raised. So I think that it's such an important topic. And then as years have gone on, I've seen more, in particular the youngers, right? The youngins,
sure,
as I call them, really buying into that philosophy. And I have to say the pushback for me is like, whoa, what's wrong with y'all? But I really had to stop myself and say, hey, times change, people change. Philosophies change. We don't hold on and shouldn't hold on to absolutely everything. Am I so entrenched in this that I cannot even let in the idea that for many people and more people, it is not just a blanket thing. It is, no, you got to earn it. And as interesting as that is for me, because I grew up with the whole adult thing. Adults are right no matter what. Yeah. You have to take anything they dish out, even if it's cruel, mean, and
that's terrible.
It was terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible. And I really for me now, and I know you, just you, basic you, not even anything we taught you, like how you came here. You like, you gonna have to earn this respect, because just because you're an adult.
Because who are you? Why, like what? You could be putting poison in my brain. Like, who are you?
Oh my gosh. So listen,
Crazy.
real life, real time, right? We got groceries coming right now. They are 2 hours late. And you know what? 2 hours late. I really should put them on blast. Fresh Direct. Two hours late. They're here though. It's pouring rain. So I'll give him a little grace for that. But Justin's taking care of that. But I'm going to continue to say, he came here, and I've said this on the show before. He came here really like, why are you all in charge? Not necessarily myself and his dad as people, but why do I need parents? Like, I got this. Even from little, I'm talking little. It just seems strange to him. So this whole idea, right, that adults, they get the pass, has always been something foreign to him. But I will say that his dad, interesting, dad did not have a lot of family. It's basically him and his mom. They had cousins or whatever, but they really weren't in relationship with them where they were always around them, where holidays meant that they got together. They always went to someone's house, someone's home who was having holiday time dinner. So family, that thing wasn't big for him. So it was always difficult for him because my family's big, and he even didn't even meet all of them because we had my dad's family, who I primarily grew up with, but then my mom's family, primarily in the South. He got to meet them and be around them for a little bit, but in terms of the holiday thing, right? When we would fill the house, it's standing room only. And it was a lot of work, a lot of people. It wasn't his thing, but he loved my family. But I'm going to tell you this. I grew up with a family that had some stuff at holiday time, particularly when alcohol came out. And I include my dad in that. And it was not fun. But for me, the fact that family, well, it was kind of fun, but it was fun until it wasn't fun. Let's put it like that, because they were a fun crew, right? But what it taught me, though, the fact that I could not get out of that. I had to be there. I had to be present at all of that. And they had to come over. It taught me that it really was important to me to have family. So I made sure that my sons and my niece really had that. My sister too just had that. And who we are now as a family, just even within us, our small group, but then when the larger family gets together, it's beautiful. We have great time. So for me, this topic I think is great, timely, and I know you've been looking into folks your age and millennials and what they are saying about this. So I really want to hear that.
Yeah, I think as far as my general thoughts on this topic, like, I was naturally already kind of just questioning of authority, to be quite frank. And if that was at home, right, imagine me at school, like, oh my gosh, right, with any adult putting poison in my brain and who didn't actually care about, my advancement in my academic success. It was really like, what is this like emotional tie that I'm supposed to have to this, right? And so I think for me it was very interesting. I love my family. I think our family is like probably one of my top 3 values in life, the things that I hold closest to me. And in my experience growing up and even now, like, I feel like I'm running into a lot more people who are in a lot more of this conversation, right? Of like, we don't really have contact with our parents, or we don't really have contact even with a sibling, or a cousin that they grew up with, but who's not really a cousin, right? It's really like a brother or a sister to you, right? And so I don't really know like how that's happening. I think that's just kind of life's funny way of like making you a certain way and then presenting you a lot of the opposite to see and show you, you know, how to deal with the duality of just like situations and perspectives and all of that. But I do know a lot of young people who genuinely have cut off that contact, and for a multitude of reasons. Even if they have to see each other at, you know, some sort of family event, which they have no problem going to in the sense of seeing other family and other people that they feel comfortable with. But I think the main thing that's come up, or the main theme that's come up, is really just to talk about safety. It's a matter of a safety decision to have that distance. I think that another thing that comes up is, or another misconception from what I've seen, is that people think young people do things just like out of nowhere and abruptly because we're just this more emotional generation and all this other stuff, when in reality, you know, we're very much thinking about these things and checking in with ourselves from, you know, the age of like 4 on, in the sense of like how these things are landing for us, where we fit into certain equations, so forth and so forth, and those kinds of questions. And so I think that there actually is a lot of introspection that goes into a decision like this. Yes, emotional circumstances can be the thing that drive you to, I guess, the feeling confident in taking that leap, right? However, you know, I feel like I've had some very deep, real, and like similar conversations with some of the same friends that I'm talking about, where it's like, you know, dude, this has been an issue for this long. Like I've brought this up, or I've tried this and I've tried that. You know, another thing I also hear all the time is that, you know, young people are trying to, you know, see and understand and get themselves to, you know, not this place. However, there are so many different reasons as to why people feel unsafe, unfortunately, in their own household, that, you know, physical isn't the only form of abuse.
I was going to say, they're not just talking about physical.
Physical is not the only form of abuse anymore. And I feel like, if anything, my generation is way more focused driven by the emotional and environmental safety that we feel. So it's just a very layered topic. There's just a lot to it, and we completely understand, being that this is not our experience personally, fully, especially in this household, that, you know, it is the experience of a lot of people out there for both of our generations, right? This is a generational topic that I think has not been given a whole lot of, I guess, traction or you know, light shed on to talk about it. However, you know, I think because family is everything, and yes, you can find a family, and unfortunately, I think nowadays, I hate using this word, but replace a family by, you know, kind of going on your phone and finding a community online that immediately aligns with who you are and what you're into and your values. You know, making sure that everyone still feels like they have family and something to come home to, I think, is important. And so it's very layered. There's a lot to it, and I wish that, unfortunately, that it wasn't a topic that we had to talk about, in the sense of, you know, everyone doesn't just wake up and say, like, you know, I don't value family. Like, that's just not really how it goes. I think a lot of stuff does happen behind closed doors, in these dynamics that, you know, we don't have to know about. We just have to be able to work with, you know, where people land from what's happening. So
yeah, I think it's such a good topic. It's really intense for me, right? Because I even think about the fact that on Facebook, I call my folks my Facebook family, because to me, they listen. When I've had to come on there and say, yo, this is happening and I need your prayers, your light, whatever. I mean, y'all have responded like family to me. And when I see it happening with you, I'm like, that's family to me. What I love are the communities that I feel badly that they have to decide who is family, in terms of if they're not blood, and you know that it isn't about blood anyway. We spend a lot of time on that, and then we leave out families that are not blood but have grown up or raised or just really love on each other in that way, and there's nothing less than that. We are fortunate. We have so many in our lives that are not blood, they're family, period, end of story. And that's the way we feel. But it's interesting that I struggle. I was telling you before we went live, I'm struggling with a particular family member who we call family, who is family to us, right? Not related to through my maternal or paternal side, but family, been there through the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that stuff. And now it's somebody that I don't really care for, and who they are right now. They could be, back in my good graces later on. I don't know. But the question I said to myself, well, are they no longer family? No, I'm not cutting ties. I'm not. I'm just distancing myself. I'm not choosing to be in your world and to do the things that I would have done before. And so I can understand a piece of this, but I'm not the one to cut ties. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think burning a bridge personally is like one of the most like definitive decisions that you can make. That I think, in a lot more cases you really can't take it back. And I think that's why I support, not burning a bridge, not really cutting a full tie, right? Even if it is in the form of just like letting you still follow me on social media, just so you can still see like what I'm doing if I post something, and like that I'm all good and things like that. And so I think I agree with that. However, I think my generation doesn't, right? I think we kind of don't have a problem burning a bridge, as you've heard me say before, burning down the entire building without having, real blueprints for reconciliation ready and handy right there, right? That is us. Like, there's real components to that are, true. And I do think that that's definitely problematic, and especially when it comes to family, right? The people who make up who you are in a way, right? I feel like I have parts of every single family member that's in my family in me, right? So it's just cool to have those different relationships and all that stuff. But I agree. Personally, I don't think fully cutting ties or burning a bridge, right? I'll leave that door creaked. It might be creaked, to which I will know, even if you try to open it a little bit, and I will decide from there, right, how we move forward. But
yeah, we got a good comment I'd love for us to throw up. So it's Christiana Carty Godin. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, my apologies.
Read the comment.
I love the comment. I am a mediator and arbitrator. Yep, me too. I am a conflict resolution professional. I believe in resolving conflict and restoring relationships. Yes. Yet sometimes it's best to let go to protect one's mental health. I can't disagree with that. I really can't. But I can tell you, generationally speaking, oh my goodness, never allowed in my generation. There were so many things that happened. Oh my gosh, there was so much conflict, and it was ugly and negative. And yet we were all expected to show up at Thanksgiving. And as a kid, number one, I always wanted to go. I love family. I love my cousins, my grandmother, that kind of thing. But even as older, right, as we got to be young adults, my sister and I always expected to show up for whatever family thing, and no matter what the dynamics were. I'm fortunate my paternal grandmother, she was a mediator, right? She never took a class, but that was her thing. So there's conflict. She was busy, believe me, because there was always conflict, and she was always trying. My dad had 5 sisters, and it was a shout out to my aunties. All of them are gone. I miss them terribly, and that's another thing. If that had not been the rule, right, I would have missed a lot of time with my aunts because they all left here early in life. So I appreciate, on the one hand, that was just written in stone. Family, mom, dad, so and so did. I know, but they're family. Period. And I know that is what I said to you all too. But I've also
I have questioned that many a time. I will just be very clear. This is, I think it's normal, like I'm going to pack my bag and leave, and I'm going to leave everything behind. Like when you're young and stuff like that. No, there's been many a time where I'm like, well, no, like this was not okay. I don't find that okay. And I don't find the enabling through that argument okay. So how is this just going to be a slap on the back, especially when these people are older than me? Who are you, right? And then that's how you're acting. Like, why am I just supposed to take that? I think y'all come from this like fix your face generation, and I think that's absolute garbage. I won't fix my face. Like I won't.
None of y'all do.
I won't fix my face, and you will have to deal with that. Like that, I'm just No.
Oh my goodness, that is so
Hell
good,
no.
so real.
No.
Because we could not. Oh my God.
Fix your face.
You're gonna complain. Number one, you're gonna say something about family, and number two, you're gonna sit up there with your
making me look bad and all this.
Buddy.
I will make you look bad.
Oh, yes. Even the people that you were mad at when my mom or my dad, but usually my mom went in on me, they'd be right behind her, even though I'm like, I'm mad at you, and my mom knows you're wrong, but you're gonna side with her.
No.
Oh no.
That is a load of baloney.
That's the generation we come from.
A load of baloney. Yes. And I wish you would tell me to fix my face, especially when you caused the problem. That's not happening. That's manipulative. It's manipulative.
But isn't this something? I love this conversation because we were never allowed to have anything close to this. Never. I mean, listen, I, as a person, was very much like you, but I was never allowed to be like you. I can remember my mom's yelling at me and saying something to me that I hated. It was horrible. And it wasn't even one of those things like, because I look back, I know. It wasn't even one of those things like, whoa, now that I'm older, I understand why she was wrong. Straight up. And
rude.
And I told wrong, rude. I told, and there's no such thing as your parent being rude. That was the other thing. But anyway,
miss me with any of that. If any of you parents think for a second that you don't have the capability of being rude, let alone rude to your child, please. I usually don't tell people how to handle anything with themselves, but go talk to someone about that. You have some stuff to release through that. Because that is a real problem. That's a real problem that contributes to this issue that we're talking about on hand.
I agree. And I'm going to say that.
Oh my gosh. I'm not rude. I can't be rude, but I'm making you cry. Like what? What?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say that. So I said to my dad, I didn't like that. And I'm going to tell you can't say that to your mother. I'm like, that was so dangerous. It's so dangerous. It is dangerous. I'm so glad that I have sons and a niece, because none of them take.
No, not any of it. No,
nothing.
I
mean, thank God they've never been mad at the same time in the same room at the adults, because those faces would never be fixed. And if they were told to fix them, it'd be worse.
Y'all don't have the energy for that fight. So.
No, no, we don't. But
it's real.
But it is real. And so for those of you out there who this is not even your struggle anymore. This is like you are resolute. Fam ain't getting away with this no more. I don't have to show up. And if I do show up and I don't like what's being said or done, I can say it or I can get out of there, and I don't care about it because what I'm doing is putting me first. I understand that because over the years I've seen, as beautiful as a philosophy it is, really, I mean, honest to goodness, my cousins and I, especially my sister, we worked on our family being close and just supportive and loving and fun together. We've worked on that, and that when we walk in the room, we're home. We're not on guard, right? We're home, and we've worked on that, and we don't have it perfect, but we certainly do have a beautiful place where that is. But I understand that everybody isn't like that, and nor do you have to be, which for me is a big switch, because I just even as 4 or 5 years ago would have said, nah, you need to fix that.
Yeah, that's real. So let's get into some reasons as to why, specifically in my research, I went with Gen Z and millennials, why they're making this choice. But I think if anything, some of these reasons are going to be something that resonates with, the older generations that tune into the show as well. This is why we do the generational perspectives here. So first, as to why Gen Z and millennials are cutting ties.
Mm-hmm.
First, adults not taking responsibility for the role they played in hard times. Now, this is, I don't want to trigger too much, right? But y'all struggle, parents, with the honestly just bringing the mirror to the conversation and like putting yourself in it too.
Maybe not all parents.
Not all parents. A lot of parents, a majority of parents, to be quite frank, right? It's not easy to say, you know what, I see my role in that. I see how what I said, regardless of, where you were at, right? I see how what I said wasn't helpful to what you were feeling in that moment, right? I see how doing this or allowing this behavior or not getting on this enough really allowed some things to happen that just are not landing well for you and are not good for your mental health and your emotional health and all of these things, right? And so while it's a hard thing for all to do, speaking from the young person's perspective, right, we genuinely trust authority more than you think, especially when it comes to blindly trusting authority. I think that we are sponges until we reach those, I guess, milestones or kind of life achievements where we feel like, maybe we don't have to absorb as much as when it comes to something that's a completely new thing. But one of the things that we listen to and absorb the most forever is the word of our respected adults.
Right.
And so if our respected adults are struggling in these times of very trying and challenging, moments and exchanges, right? If they're not able to say, hey, I got that wrong and I want to apologize to you, right? As laying a foundation for them being able to come to the table to say, well, yeah, maybe here's how I ran with that, right? Just because you handed off the ball doesn't mean that I didn't go and gain that first down, right? So for those who understand football and references, right? It just means you may have started it right, but I ran with it, right? There's just roles for everyone to play. And I think that a lot of parents struggle saying openly, consistently to their children, hey, I got that wrong. And I completely see that. And that's not going to happen again as I see what this did to you now.
Yeah.
And I think that we need a lot more of that so that our kids and our young people are coming to the table with a lot more honesty and a lot less, trying to spend their energy on the wording of what they're feeling and the way it's going to land for you. Yes, there's a way to get it out and be respectful and be skillful in that. However, we can't tell people what they're feeling and how they're feeling and how these things land for them. That's completely the time where they have the mic and we have to respond rather than react.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I come from the generation of my mom and all the adults telling you to do something and then you ask why? Because I said so.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, that is so damaging. It doesn't allow for a voice. I'm not saying, well, no, I'm going to say something before that. Doesn't allow for a voice. It doesn't allow for thinking in an exchange of whether or not what I'm thinking could be actually a different idea, or that I maybe don't understand why in this moment you're asking me, or anything like that. But I also think it just doesn't respect the person that the child is. But what it also sets up is that there can be pushback in a time when you really do need them to just understand it's because I said so. So let's go, right? Because if they know that that's not the norm, right, that there is often an exchange and they respect you, they'll know, okay, I'm going to take our word for it and I'm just going to do it right now.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Next, boundaries for healing and reconciliation were not encouraged or nurtured. And I really think that my biggest point here is that, you can start anything at any time that you want, right? As long as you're breathing, as long as you're here, you're living, the world's yours, and however you want to approach everything or anything is completely up to you. I know personally from my experience the benefits of laying these foundations as early as possible, right? So family talks, right? Coming to the table and literally everyone, even with a talking stick or just however you want to give everyone the floor, right? Having the opportunity to say what they're feeling, even just about the week in which they had, sharing that roof with you, right? Whatever it is, I think that those foundations, as you're laying them as early as possible, the less work it's going to feel like approaching the table later on in life with more difficult conversations and topics. And so I think that when this is something that you try to start or implement when your child is like past middle school, even like into high school, right? There's a lot of things, a lot of shifts that happen in that time, right? These are formative years, right? In which if they're not allowed to talk, if they're not allowed to say, not right now, right? If they're not allowed to say, I just need my door closed for a couple hours. I just need to take a nap. I don't want to get into this right now or at all, right? Then that really leads to conversations becoming way more disingenuine, and then also for them to be derailed from what the actual conflict is that you're trying to approach. Then it becomes issues of, well, you don't give me the space to get my thoughts together because you do this as a parent, and this is how it's shown up here. And then just conversations get crazy, right? So I think these boundaries, when you really are thinking about, what am I giving you this time for, right? Am I giving you this time to really sit with yourself? Am I giving you this time to sit with myself, right? Like, really being intentional about these things, and then making sure that there's always a table to come back to. Not burning that bridge at all, especially when you hear some things that you don't necessarily agree with or resonate with. Again, I think if you start that as early as possible and lay that as a foundation, it just makes approaching the table for difficult conversations later in life that much easier.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that when I finally moved out and I was ready to move out in a hurry, I just didn't really want to have as much contact with my mom in particular, if because even as an adult there was this dogma, this things that she insisted on, and she wasn't a terrible person. It's not that. It's just enough. It just felt like enough, and that can happen if you're really not leaving the space and building the space for the kinds of things that you just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, they've tried everything. They've tried to enter the conversation when they didn't want to, and stay skillful in that. Your young people have tried to hear what you're saying, hear what you're feeling, and take that into consideration as the adults, who, yes, even though it takes a while for us to humanize our parents, we do know y'all have at least feelings. So it's a weird thing with us. I don't know. I'm still deciphering that and doing my research on that. But they've tried, like they've genuinely tried. And that's where I think, I brought up the digital age, right? As a way of saying, that's where it becomes one of those things where if I'm not going to get my family here, then all I got to do is go on my phone or go on my video game, literally find a community of where the entry point is just a shared interest. And I'm bound to find someone or people or a group that's going to hear me and accept me as well. And if not as well, in their minds, it might be even more, right? And so I think I want to be very clear. Like, these are not just abrupt emotional choices that young people are making. Like, it takes two to tango in every single one of these situations and exchanges. And it's not even about right or wrong, to be quite frank. It's really about, how much was I understanding you? How much was I even open to hearing you? Especially hearing something differing from what I thought you were going to say, right? Or how I thought you were going to handle it. And so, your young people are trying. They're trying. They value family. They value these things. And if anything, when they really get to these decisions of just like, well, is this really where it's going to go, for the sake of, as our great comment said earlier, like protecting my mental health, protecting my future, my right to releasing some of this garbage and toxins that, people are putting in our brains all the time, they've tried everything before they got there. They really have. At least I genuinely believe that. And so that's really what I would say.
Yeah, I think that I feel two ways about it. I believe that, and then just from the work in conflict resolution, I believe they believe it. But uh, people do not have good conversation, real, honest, deep conversation these days. Most people don't have the tools. They think they do, right? But they don't. They're not listening. They just aren't doing what they think they are doing. So I will say, yes, most likely they've tried everything and you've not responded well. But I really do think that sometimes they really haven't tried
Oh yeah.
the real conversation.
Oh yeah. And shout out this comment. Came in late, no problem, Melissa, but gotta say
Yay.
you love your found family.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
And
I
I
love
think
that
that
saying.
I think
Found
our
family.
generation makes up, or not makes up. We kind of embrace that found family, right?
Mhm.
We lead and talk a lot about that. And so yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
would say there.
All right. So, what happens if you want to try to resolve this? I want to really go through a few things that I think might be able to help you with that. The first one is, you know what I'm going to say it, extend the invitation to have a conversation, like a real conversation, not of this, right? Just try to listen more than you talk. If you do talk, try to give explanation, not excuse, explanation for how you're thinking and where that comes from for you, and be open to that. Hey, I can think differently. Even if I struggle with it, at least I can hear that perspective that you have, and try to keep the door open for it. I'm not saying that you have to give in to everything and change everything, but I am saying that if your conversation is based on the real philosophy, like because I said so, and you're the one that's going to have to change and not me, then you're really not having a true conversation that allows for their perspective to really give you some food for thought.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say on this is just, drop the expectations, I think, of
Hmm.
what you think the other person is going to say or how they're going to
Oh, good.
respond.
That's a good one.
Because that just leads to, way more of the staying in your own boat, right? And staying in your own lane, which even if that is how it ends, I think that while we're present in these conversations, we really just want to be as open as possible to, what we're going to end up being on the receiving end of, right? And so I think when you drop the expectations, it just also allows you to do your thinking before or in other places more than when you're actually in the middle of the conversation, like processing and all the stuff that they're saying. Um, I just don't want to. I think like using the brain power, like in the middle of it at times, right? Yes, there's time for like, I just need a second to like have that land, right? Whatever. But I think when you do a lot of your thinking ahead of time in the sense of like goal setting, right? Really, what do you want to get out of this
Yeah, that's what I
conversation
was gonna
and
say.
just leaving it there as opposed to, well, I have these points and
Right.
here's what they have to say in response to that. And when
Right.
they don't, then you're wasting brain power on, well, how do I respond to the fact that they just said something that I wasn't expecting? And
Right.
it's like, well, drop the expectations and you probably won't have to deal with that too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, widen the outcome. If the outcome is because they just need to come to Thanksgiving because otherwise I'm going to be embarrassed and I don't want to, and that's just how they were raised. And then the outcome should be, I really want a better relationship. And so whatever that's going to take, right? So it may be that we're still working on it when the holidays roll around, and and they may decide that I'm still not there yet, so I'm not going to come. But it doesn't mean that you aren't still working on the relationship. It shouldn't just be about their attendance at a holiday event.
Yeah.
The next one is stay away from platitudes, traditions, and dogma. For goodness sake, yes, there's value to being able to be a family that says family first, right? And there's value to that. I'm not saying that there isn't. There's value to your children knowing their family and you being able to be in the same space with your family and have a great time. But if nobody else is working at it and it's just a horrible, miserable time every time, then what is the point of sticking to these, you just got to put up with it. That's just how what's the point of that? Every year after year, or every event. Some people have big families, and so there's something every week,
Yeah, I can't
or
imagine.
everybody,
I
like,
can't imagine that.
what's the point if it honestly is putting someone else's mental health at stake? Right, just for the show, right? And I've been through that. Just, oh, did so and so not speaking to me? You can't not speak to me, because then everybody is going to be looking at me. And yeah, it's really important, I think, to stay away from this. Yes, this is how I brought you up, and I think it's important, but I understand that that's not how you're viewing it. And I can't take that on as my fault, right?
No,
I can't
yeah,
take that on
no,
as my fault.
no,
Now,
no, no.
where you see that I have made mistakes and haven't owned them, we can talk about that,
Yeah,
right? But the fact
absolutely.
that they're not buying into the dogma, that isn't really your fault.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I don't have anything for that. That's great.
Okay. And be open to having to accept a decision while leaving the door open for the future, right? It's painful. It hurts. If you really and sincerely want them at the occasion, or you really and sincerely want to have them just to go to lunch or pick up the phone. I know people don't do that a lot, or answer your text. Well, all right, I'm gonna stay in the modern age, whatever. What, I understand it's painful, but you can't make them feel bad about their decision. It, you just really have to keep the door open to try to see if the communication should happen. And we haven't said something that I think is incredibly important. I know that you said some of it. We're not talking about people in the family that are abusing people. We're not talking about that, right? We no, 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 no. And I know growing up, that was not even spoken of. First of all, the line of what was abuse was so long and so wide that you couldn't say anything about someone doing something to you that the adults wouldn't say, well, that's uncle's. We're not talking about that, y'all. Trust and believe. We are talking about, though, where it seems like folks can't get along, or, today I'm just not in the mood for y'all. And I'm going to pass on this one, right? Or I'm not picking up the phone for a while because it hurts me. It's painful, right? Though you got to accept that may be where they're at. And as hard as it is for you, and as hard as that may be for your image, right? Everybody thinks you're this great, whatever, parent, aunt, friend, whatever it is, right? Your relationship is so tight, and this is showing, right, behind the curtain, that it really isn't. Well, that's how it is. Be open to letting them have that choice, that decision, and just be open to leaving that door open for the future.
Yeah, don't burn that bridge. We all grow. We all have time, while we're here, and I think that, people can change, circumstances can change, but it does take work. Like, that's the real thing. It takes active work from every party to keep that door open, even creaked, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Let me say one more thing about this, and that is the other side of that. if you as a parent know that they're engaging in something very dangerous, illegal, and you just don't want that around you, right? That I get, right? It's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. I love you, but we got to have that distance. So I'm cool. Like if that, it could be the other way around. They're insisting that you can't close the door on them just because they're doing something that you don't like that's illegal. And then I'm going to be clear for the LGBTQIA community, I'm not talking about that. I'm really not. I am not talking about them insisting that you be someone who you are not and love someone who you do not. I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about, for instance, if you're dealing drugs and it's illegal, right? I'm not talking about you working in a dispensary. Let's be clear, right? And they say, you can't come around here with that. I'm sorry. You're just not going to be welcome. You got to understand and leave the door open for that piece too.
Yeah, that's a bar. That's a bar. Yeah. I think tough topic, timely topic, generational topic. And I think that, the only way really to go about this is through the difficult conversations, right? And not closing the door, keeping it open. Completely understand and completely respect both sides of how you decide to move about it, right? Parents have their side too, right? It's not, I think we exempt parents when they become parents from, like, I guess, being people or individuals, right? With their own feelings, their own thoughts, which is part of the humanization, right, of parents that young people struggle to do, or it takes them some time to do. It took me some time to do. However, I come from a family of, holidays every year and making it work, and impromptu visits that no one really knows about. And, you just get a random text, hey, I'm in town, let's link up. And, and that still shows up today at as I'm 23. And I would have thought by now it's a little different, and like, we're not gonna be able to do that. No, we still do that. We still have that, even with family members that, we're struggling with right now. We're family too. We're people too. We have all these struggles going on off camera, just like y'all do, right? If anything, like I say, and like we always say, we're just trying to bring these conversations more to light so that they're not as considered as weird or like an energy, buzzkill kind of vibe. If you bring it up, it's like, no, let's just do a little work so that we know everyone's working. Everyone's working here.
Yeah. I say ultimately we need each other, y'all. We really do. But I don't think that family can exist in the ways that it has existed in when I was growing up. It takes work. You got to work. You can't just, flash the family card and treat folk however you want to treat them, and then expect that they just got to show up, right? Look, you in trouble, family knows. You in trouble, even though I'm mad at you. You family. I'm going to show up unless it's going to get me hurt, right? But as long as we good, family. You can say that to me. Oh, come on now, Lynn. That's family. Okay, fine. We'll ride, right? But as family, y'all ain't getting a pass either when you get in that car. I'm letting you know. Nah.
And I'm stubborn. I might get in the car. You're just going to know how mad I am about getting in the car. And how much BS I feel like it is to get in that car with this person if I have an issue with them. That's the only thing I'm saying. I'll get in the car, we riding, but I might look at you this entire time like this. Like, why am I riding with you even though I know why I'm riding with you? So
I love that because it has happened.
Don't piss me off.
And I'm just saying, like, when they get in the car, it's like, yo, let me just tell you, you family, so I rode, but this, don't pull this anymore, right? Get it together.
Like this call that you called me is not happening again.
Get it together.
We're not having that again.
Get it together, yes. But I do feel ultimately we need each other. But family can be whoever you deem family. I love found family. I love that.
I love that.
Because they got to be there for you. They got to be willing to put in the work, and the work involves conversations. Got to be able to talk about things, talk things through, own your stuff. I think this was such a terrific topic, especially now. I hope people will think about it. Reach out to family that you haven't been in touch with, if you really want to do that, and see if you can make some headway. And if it's not, don't beat yourself up. that you have decided that I just can't be around them?
No, because I personally would assume that you tried and did what you could. So if you enjoyed this topic, this episode, if you enjoyed this show,
Yes,
please go to e360tv.com, Trajectory Channel. Check us out there. Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV.
watch us on your big screen.
Thank
That's
you.
what I've been doing.
Remember when you were just sitting there quiet when I was just like looking like
that was one time.
I just thought I'm not gonna let that go. That was fine. Next, Facebook, Working It Out TV show. A little glitch in the system going on right now, but
yeah,
we'll
but
get that handled for
Facebook,
y'all.
get it together. It's not us. It's Facebook.
Okay.
Because I was on earlier and it was a problem. So.
All right. Well, YouTube, subscribe there. Working It Out
Yes.
across generations. Like we say all the time, every like, every share, every comment, every view, every just piece of engagement, small as all, it all adds up. So we are so deeply appreciative and just so appreciate everyone rocking with us through having some difficult conversations, right? These aren't easy conversations to even load up on your screen and listen into, right? So we respect anyone and everyone who's willing to, just come to the table, check us out, because these are things that we can talk about and make them a little bit more of the norm than just how to crash out on each other and close doors and burn bridges, right? That's the easier thing to do. Let's do the hard thing. So
yes, Melissa said perfect timing on this topic. And we've also seen some comments on LinkedIn. People like, nah, you got to respect me, period. Universal family does not get you a pass.
that's real.
But hoping that whoever is your family, that you have found a great space to be a part of them, and that you share in the joy and the love and the hard work that makes it all worthwhile. So, you know what we say, conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. So go out there and find out what it is.
This is Working It Out across generations. I'm Justin.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.